right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is Skip from UK, the host of Dreams One Occupy. This is take 2. Okay. It's take 1. Supposed to be, I was all hype and smooth. Just ruined the whole energy of my guest. But back in sync, we have someone that is so like influential to the community of like basketball and uptown area. Not just uptown, just New York City, period, right? There's not that many tournaments that have such impact, such visibility of, you know, you get the best ballers in probably like the Northeast come out and just try to show their stuff. And she's part of this business. She got her team just on the court and just be like, this is how we do this. This is how we run this. And they've been running this for ever. I think probably since it began. Or I could be wrong from my notes because that's why we have her in the building. But if you don't know, this is Naya Tha Great. You don't need to know her real name because that's confidential. I know because I researched it. I don't even have to ask her for it. But this is Naya Tha Great. So it's going where we're going to put the clap. It's bad annoying. But how you feeling? It's been a long time coming. How you feeling?
I'm good. Yeah, I know we tried to do this right after the summer.
Hey, you did swamped.
And yeah, I usually just take a break after the summer and like try to travel some and see friends and things. So, and I really am a big procrastinator. So I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
We're here. Look, I'm patient. I'm very patient. I think I want people to come and interview when they actually have the capacity to, because there's no point of like you just saying yes and you didn't really want to. And it's like I started recording probably like 2 months ago, so I've been doing it from October. Well, whatever, you guys aren't supposed to know the BTS, but for 2 months, I'm recording people to get ready for the season. And you are one person I really wanted to like talk to, right? Just because of like we don't see a lot of Black women in high positions when it comes to basketball, right? And I think it's very, very crucial to highlight them and give them like a proper space, kind of like tell the story, because we don't know who else is going to look at you and be like, man, I want to be like her. I want to work with her. How do I like elevate that brand to another level? So, and even though I never had a chance to go to Dyckman just because of comedy and life.
Wait. We are in the middle of an interview about a tournament that you've never been to?
But I watched the games.
Oh my God.
I mean, I wasn't physically watching the games, but
amazing.
Seen the streams.
This is like the guy who did the interview with Adele but never heard the album.
So first of all, whoa, I just said I saw the games from the streams. So it's not like I'd never seen the games. Don't play me like that. Adele's shout out
fine.
to you.
I get it.
But it's gonna happen. I had to handle some life stuff out. I had to move, gonna happen. I don't have to make sure these questions are extra on point moving forward. But before we even get to that, because everyone wants to talk to you about Dyckman, everyone wants to talk about that, but that is not the only thing about you, right? There's so much to you as a person that I looked up. I want to take it all the way back. I want to take it back to when you were young lady, pretty young thing, right? What is she trying to do? PYT, like Michael Jackson would say. PYT, right? What was kind of like everyone had like a childhood dream or aspiration or something you were just doing you were really good at. What were you doing when you were a kid? Did you grow up in the Bronx or Harlem?
I grew up in Dyckman, which is
okay. So
it's just hard to place for a lot of people, but Dyckman is the tip of Manhattan. It's like the furthest you can go, maybe 213th or something like that. I think it's 215th or 220th or something like this. Okay, is the furthest you can go before you get to the Bronx, but. I grew up in Dyckman. My childhood dream, I wanted to be like on TV, like acting or singing, but I can't sing. I'm tone deaf like hell.
Okay.
So that was out, and my family told me that ASAP. I really was into Oprah, so I wanted to be like the next Oprah for a bit. Okay. Hence the podcast that I used to do. And then I think really early on, it kind of we just like, my mother's a strategic person, so kind of early on I just was, went into law and thought I was going to do that. But I was committed to that for a bit, even maybe like 2 years into college. So, those were my childhood dreams, I think. Okay, so wait, let's hold this down right. So you wanted to be like a singer / actor. You want to be like a personality, like Oprah, like I want to entertain.
And then you want to do law. So like those are the 3 areas, right? Now, if we think about it, of those 3 things, the most important thing in common with those is like you have a strong presence and a strong voice, right? Right. Those are things you already have in real life. Doesn't mean you do have a strong presence. You do have a strong voice, right?
I don't know how strong my presence is. I mean, I guess. Yeah.
I think, okay, cool. going to pivot a little bit because I want to address this since you brought it up. I don't think people can understand their presence without the people around them letting them know, right? Because when it comes to your friends and your family, they'll probably tell you, obviously, things you've done, how proud they are of you, but you're not able to see it because you're living it, right? So you're moving forward, you're doing your whole dream, so you can't feel the gravity of the presence until someone has to be like, yo, you know you did all this shit, right? Like, and that's what this whole interview, this whole fucking platform is all about. It's like, I need you to understand.
Oh, so this should be exciting.
I mean, goddamn right, because it's not just about that. It's about everything you did, because everything you did brought you to become the woman that you are today with the people around you today that love you, and you are executing in the way because of the things that you had to learn. Because you want to be an actor, you still can. You still can. And we're going to talk about that. Yeah, we're going to talk about that one. I don't know about the singing. I can't make nobody sing. I can't sing, right? So
those are gifts.
We can't do that. Personality, that's up to you. I feel like we are going to talk about that podcast. We're going to talk about the good, bad, and ugly with that. And, if there's any type, you don't have to do that podcast again. But how do you use that skill in the future, right? And with law, it's like, all right, you're not trying to, bust the bad guys. Like, I know.
I mean, no, I'm just not. I don't want to go back to law school. That's really what that's about.
Yeah, fuck that shit. Okay, cool. So
I'm a horrible student.
Look, we've addressed that. Now, those are the three things. When you were a child, so the first thing that came into your life was the singing and acting, right? So when did that kind of manifest in your childhood? Like, I wanted to do this before you realized you were tone deaf.
I still don't really realize I'm tone deaf, but I don't know. I just kind of was really into movies and things. And I always thought like I had like a lot of charisma and was kind of funny. I was always like kind of a fat kid too, so I was the funnier one in the group. Okay. So I don't know. I just thought like, why wouldn't I, try to do this? But I think that wasn't like concrete enough for my parents and family. So that's how we kind of moved from that to law. And I think back then, I think about this a lot now that I'm an adult, but I think back then there was no one on TV who looked like me except Nikki Parker. And then at that point, when Nikki Parker hit TV, I was already, at least middle school. So there was no one on TV who looked like me. Like, it might have been black kids, but usually they weren't even brown skinned and they definitely weren't fat. And nor were like the black women or any of that stuff. So I think that was just like a dream deferred for me. I just was kind of like, and I didn't think that I even believed in it enough in myself to be like, I'll be the first here in like a groundbreaking way. So I just quickly pivoted to something else that made sense to me. And I kind of was always a person arguing people down, so law made sense. And I think, when did I start legal outreach? I started legal outreach is the summer before high school. So it's this program that got me into college. And they do everything kind of based in law. Okay. So wait, but let's not fast forward. Go ahead. Let's not fast forward because look, your kid and your elementary, junior, high school, before we get that's important because like that foundation thing of like your family is very important. Like, so you said you grew up in Dyckman, so your whole life, right? Dyckman. Yeah. Where all my family lives in Dyckman.
So all your family, so like growing up, like you just
my mom and my dad's side.
Squad, gang, like everyone's close together. So
everybody.
Like, so it's kind of that type of thing where you kind of wake up. If you wanted to see one of your family members from either side, you literally could probably travel a couple minutes in either direction.
We all grew up in the projects.
Okay, so it's like a building complex. And
I lived in building 4. My biological father and his mom. My aunts and uncles on that side, they live in building 2. My grandmother, my mom's mom, lives on 8. We live on 7. My like aunts and stuff. I mean, now they've dispersed, but at the time we were like all buildings apart. Yeah. So yeah, it was. I grew up really in a deep community, like it takes a village for real, kind of situation. And I think that really was important to, kind of my coming of age story, just because like I never really, I was the only kid for 10 years, but I never felt like it,
Because you surround so much love, so many cousins, so many other people. Exactly. Also, especially being in the housing complex thing, like she was saying numbers. So for people that happen to not ever know what that is? Because housing complexes are in all like cities and states, but like you have like these clusters, right? So it's usually maybe like 3 to 5 or 3 to 6 clusters of like buildings of 4.
Right.
So when you're like circle 1, circle 2, circle 3, because I used to live in a building complex with my mom and my little brother. So you understand like this circle, they're gonna ask where you from. Like if you're not from there, it's like, but it's his family, so these are safe territory. So but for you, since everything is like safe, like how does that work for you?
Dyckman is smaller. We have 7 buildings total.
Copy.
That's it. And the Dyckman everyone else knows, it's, I mean, even from when I was a kid, it was like a heavy Dominican neighborhood, which they live on the outskirts. So like Post and Sherman and those blocks. And so it was no like, it really wasn't like Dyckman is it's a projects, but it really didn't give project energy when I was a kid. Yeah. Like it was light. We had like green grass. Like we didn't get those like black gates that most projects just have for a while. It was really giving housing complex for a long time.
Yeah.
So I never had like kind of this like experience where I had to like watch where I was hanging out and things like that. And I think really because my family was all there, I just never thought about those things like truly a safe space for me. Like never really thought about danger. I still don't think about danger when I'm there because it is a safe space for me and all my family grew up there. Like my mom and my uncles and my grandparents, my dad, his brothers and sisters. I mean, they all grew up there. So there are people who knew me before I was even me, So,
okay. So foundation, generations, all there, just growing up, right? So as you're like growing up from like youth to like pre-adolescence and like teenage, adolescence, stuff like that, you're just living in right now. From like when you're little, you're kind of like on this lawyer track, right? So you're kind of like just doing class, getting better at writing.
The lawyer track really doesn't start until
so much
about
later.
9th grade.
So 9th grade. So until then, what were you just doing? You were just being a kid. You were just doing grades.
Yeah, my mother kept me active.
Okay.
So I was like I think elementary school. The first thing I did that was like an extracurricular thing was like Girl Scouts. I was in a chess club. I was a fresh air fun kid. I went to Camp Mariah, which was really pivotal in my social skills. I went to Fresh Air Fun has a program called Friendly Town, and this is my first like intimate interaction with white folks. And you go live with a white family for 2 weeks. All of the families don't have to be white; they just have to live in like, countryside, rural areas, like basically not the city. But usually those are white folks. At least back then in 2000, they were.
How
white
was
folks.
that experience? Was that weird for you?
It was the first. So I did 2 families. The first family I went to, they were not. They weren't necessarily rich. They lived comfortably, but they weren't rich. They had a lake house, which obviously to me was rich. But I can tell that they lived. Thinking about it in retrospect, they lived humbly. Humble. Am I saying? How do you say this word? No,
you say humbly. Like of humble, because you're going to either say of humble means or there was living humbly.
Humbly, yeah. And that was a great experience for me. I mean, I think there was like a lot of cultural things at the time that kind of, I just like wasn't really catching. Like I knew that I was out of place, but they never made me really feel out of place. And I love that family, but and one of the reasons I love them is just because even on a social economic like tip, we were really similar. And the reason I couldn't go back a second summer is the mother had to go to work. Like she was a stay-at-home mom, and like I guess at the time the economy was doing what it was doing, but I was a kid, so who knew? So she needed to pick up work, so I couldn't go back the second summer. So the next summer I went to a family, I think in Massachusetts, somewhere, Massachusetts or New Hampshire, something like that. And the mother did something really big at Coca-Cola, so they were rich. They had a lot of money. And that one was a much more interesting experience. We were kind of like, it was me and another girl from Brooklyn, which I needed because we were just kind of there to entertain their daughter who didn't really want us there. But it was just interesting those were my first real like intimate interactions with white folks. So we are not having a racism conversation today, but I was able to see it in a very different way than most people are seeing it like on the street or in classrooms, you know what I mean? It was like dinner table racism, you know what I mean? Like, And I don't think at the time I was well read or any of those things. So there was a lot of those like Raisin in the Sun moments happening, but I had not even read Raisin in the Sun yet. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So it's kind of like before you even knew what it was, I was
experiencing
you can acknowledge it, like as in you can peep it, but you don't even know how to explain how you feel about it.
Yeah, and not to like though they were great people, and I don't think it was malicious per se, but I think just by way of like the cultural differences, it was what it was. I did that second family for 2 years, and I think the last year I didn't go back because the father called me fat, and I never went back to that family at all. And I never went to a family again after that. Actually, I got too old, and I went to this camp called Camp Mariah, where honestly a lot of my adult friends that I have now, I met them there. But also like it had been like the first time I had ever been somewhere with like a lot of black kids outside the city.
Wow. Okay.
And honestly, most of them were from like Brooklyn and were Caribbean. It was great.
So who did you meet that's part of your like long time, like, because you're a person that outside of your family, which is like these are your dogs, right? Mm-hmm. When it comes to like how I like see you on social media, when it comes to like show. I mean, I observe. Like I'm like the watcher. If you guys watch it, I just watch people. It's like I like that. Look at you bonding with your friends and stuff like that. Not in a not weird way. I'm not taking notes, but it's just like mental things. Like that's fucking fire. But with people that you call your friends, they're like a second family for you, right? Because you trust them, and vice versa, right? So
yeah, I hope so.
Oh, okay, all right. Let's not get that deep. But like the people that you
I trust my friends. I hope they trust me. I mean, but yeah, no, friendship to me is really important. Most of my my first friends were my cousins. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of how I just go about my life. All of my friends are kind of like my cousins for the most part.
But who did you meet at Camp Mariah? If you remember, that you still consider friends.
There's the set of twins that most of the city knows. Dewan Devontae. I think Devontae is the coach at Mega Evers girls basketball now. Okay. And Dewan is maybe at KIP or Harlem Success. He's teaching though. My friend Brianna, the job I have now, like my 9 to 5, I got that job from her. Molly, wow, I didn't even think about that. Me and Molly's like my brother. We don't even need blood to verify that. And we met at Camp Mariah, and wow, that's crazy. I'm missing folks for sure.
I don't expect you to name all of them, but it's just to like to show the importance of what you just said.
There are people who like I mean, if I am forced to have children, my children will call like auntie and uncle. You feel me? Mm-hmm. So yeah, definitely like Camp Mariah was a big, it had like a big influence on my life at the time, especially culturally. Like I'd never heard. It's crazy to say this, but I really never heard reggae music, like up-to-date reggae music, before I went to Camp Mariah. Like, the first time I ever heard Dutty Wine was at Camp Mariah. Okay. Which is crazy. I know. That feels crazy. But
if we're being honest, right?
No, it's not Dutty Wine. It was Stookie.
Okay. Again, people be like, Sam, like I'm Jamaican, but I'm Jamaican adjacent. Like
I get it.
Like I have the bloodline of Jamaicans, but I didn't grow up Jamaican. So people be like, yo, you're mad fraudulent. It's like I only know two things.
I feel this.
I know two things. I know I like black women that are of Caribbean, and I like the food, and I know how to bust a wine when it needs to happen. Right. So now you're kind of like catching up because in Dyckman, you're not going to always have a lot of those kind of people because usually...
Yeah, and Dyckman is really heavy Dominican. Yeah, it's the home of the largest population of Dominicans outside of DR. And that's how I didn't necessarily grow up Dominican. That's not what happened. My parents are African American. But culturally, the area is very Dominican. So, like the music and stuff, I just kind of absorbed the language. I mean, I absorbed the language enough to understand it. I don't speak it very well. And just like little cultural things, I absorbed it. But I had never really interacted. I was too young at the time to really have interacted with Flatbush. You know what I mean? So going to Camp Mariah was that interaction because most of them were from the area. And I just had it opened me up to the city. Like I hadn't had friends in Brooklyn really, cousins and stuff. But it was no reason for me to have friends in Brooklyn. Yeah.
So it's like really the closing that gap because to me, when it comes to like between like Dyckman and Harlem, like that kind of like melting pot of black and brown, like regardless of how people feel about the borough wars, I feel like that area, Bronx and Brooklyn and parts of Queens, like we all get each other. We may dress differently, we may have different like ways of being and different kind of like mannerisms, but like we just get each other. And when you kind of like in that space where people that are not trying to do some like nefarious things, like yo, we actually have good vibes. So I think that I really want to like hone in on like how this place kind of like expanded you, because all right, you talked about the music. I feel like you went through like not an awakening, but you just were like, yo, the world is really bigger than what I'm used to.
But in a very like controlled environment, right? So like I feel like one, it's just kind of Black kids don't really get a chance to like be free and enjoy, you know what I mean? And Camp Mariah really was a place for that. We were there for 21 days. We were there for 3 weeks. Most camps at the time that were running through Fresh Air Fund were 14 days max, and Camp Mariah was 21. And it was co-ed, which was a big deal because that was like most of the camps I had been at with Fresh Air Fund wasn't co-ed, which I mean, at the time, I don't think any of us was really like looking for it, but it definitely did add a different element. And then we had like these camp counselors, but our camp counselors were in college too, so it kind of gave us something to look forward to. And Camp Mariah's whole goal at the time, I have no clue what they're doing now, but the whole goal at the time was kind of a career achievement program. So your 21 days there on a weekday, you were in like something like classes. So I can remember, I don't know if it was my first or second year or whatever, because you do 3 years. I remember taking music. I remember taking fashion. I remember taking journalism. Everyone has to take this like resume class situation. Everyone has to take swimming. And there are a couple of other classes, but I remember the music and the fashion one because that's the first time I ever used a sewing machine. I made a dress, and I learned how to play the acoustic guitar. I'm horrible now. I can only play one Bob Marley song, but you know, like that was a big deal, you know, where would I have learned that stuff if I had not gone to Camp Mariah? And it was just also like all of these kids from like the hood being able to just be, you know what I mean? Like
just
really
exist and not worry about anything.
Yeah, and be safe. And it was a lot of fun. We learned a lot, and I think it really was the place where I kind of figured out, like, I had a like life to look forward to, if that makes sense. Like, I think people were throwing around college and things like that, but I had not really visualized it or understood what I wanted to do to understand, like, maybe I do want to go to college. And I remember they used to do, so Camp Mariah happened in the summertime for 3 weeks, and then you also got to come back twice in the middle of the year. So once in the fall on a weekend, once in the spring on a weekend. And some of the counselors came back, they hired new ones. And on one of those weekends, I met a girl who was at Duke. I can't remember her name right now, but I met a girl who was at Duke. Me and her clicked and was really close, and I remember her telling me about her whole experience. And for years after that, I wanted to go to Duke just based off the experience she told me. And I hadn't really known anybody at that point who went to universities, like, and so it was a big deal, and I think it was something I kept in the back of my head. I feel like I was never part of my personality. I'm like one of those people who's not really too excited about anything. I'm like trying to lean in more. I have a problem with being present, so it's hard for me to be like really excited about one thing because I'm already moved past it. And I was even like that as a kid, so it was something that always sat at the back of my head. Going to a big university, like a top 50 or something like this, but I had no plan for it, so I just didn't. I don't think I said it to anybody, but I think that that in conjunction with the fact that my mom was already always planting those seeds is what really got me there.
So just to just sum up everything that you kind of gotten from Camp Mariah. So you said you had there was resume writing, you had journalism, you had
fashion,
and then you had there was another music, right? Which is pretty impressive, right? Because when we look at you, like, obviously right now you don't get to tweet because, one, you had a very extensive summer. So you kind of go off. Like, you have, like, on seasons and off seasons.
Yeah.
But from what I've seen, like, you're really tapped in when it comes to music. You're fly as fuck when it comes to sneakers and, like, kind of fits, right? Like, those are things that when you see someone's Instagram, you be like, oh, that's a fucking ensemble, right? You know? And when it comes to, like, just well, it's not really the journalism, but what we learn from journalism is copywriting, right? So when it comes to our captions and stuff like that, like regardless of people notice it or not, when it comes to your brand, you're literally a brand. When you're doing something with your firefighter, you're with your friends, you're literally kind of like doing elements of marketing, elements of journalism. You're detailing something that's going on, right? And of course, the resume helps you get these big jobs and like doing things. That is pretty rare, right? For something that is focused on Black and brown, kind of like kids from different backgrounds.
Very rare.
Because usually that's regular for when it comes to the more affluent people who tend to be white. But for that, I wanted people to feel the gravity of that, because those are things that we see that you don't even think about now, because you don't have to think about it consciously. But those memories of like this, and then you have your mom planting seeds for you. Just, you already thought about colleges and universities, but mom believes in you, because when she starts thinking, it's like, all right, cool. You see what you want to do, how we're going to make you get there. And seeing like we're not even as close, because we got to get through high school and college, and we got to talk about the jobs and Dyckman. But like, that's important. Like that foundation, it shows you it can be done. It shows you like, yo, I can do that. This young lady wants to do, I can do that. And now you're going to some competition, but it makes it feasible.
Yeah, that's kind of what it was. It just was, like, wow, she's Black and she's at Duke. And I don't know. I don't even remember what I knew about Duke at the time, other than they had like big sports teams.
Yeah.
So it just kind of was like, oh, a Black girl at a university. Me and her seem similar. Maybe I'm smart enough to do this kind of thing.
I mean, you are. But
no, for sure. But you know, like there, as just like the kind of kid I wasn't really. I was like a mediocre student. I wasn't like,
because you say you didn't really like the whole test taking stuff like that, right?
Yeah, I wasn't really into. I mean, I could kill a test, like whatever, like A me out on a test, but I couldn't like real life. I just couldn't focus. I couldn't like focus in school to like. I couldn't get the work done. It wasn't hard, but it really was hard for me to focus, and I think it's just like something I'm learning about myself is that I always was a creative, but I never felt supported as one. So I just could never lean into that side. I always just kind of, had to make my other skills stronger. Like I needed to be stronger in math, and I needed to be stronger in like arithmetic and writing. So that's what I did. And I was frustrated that I could not like color the way, just like arts and crafts and things like that, the way I wanted to. And so it was really hard for me to focus in school. And I just didn't want to be there. Yeah. Like, no lie, I didn't want to be there. So I just was like a mediocre student, which is funny because we're talking about college, and that's why I'm like, things really do change. Things changed.
So here's my question, right? And it's just making me think about how, especially when it comes to thinking with black and brown boys and girls, right? How a lot of times they're not diagnosed with either like properly with ADHD or like autism, stuff like that, and levels of autism. Because a lot of times people only think of two types of when you think of like maybe an ADHD, or it's like at that time it's ADD. Right. And like when it comes to autism, where there's certain things of like keeping focus, right? Like I know probably from some of my family members, maybe like a third of them, maybe like a quarter of them are like trouble focusing. Like even me, like probably one or two classes I couldn't focus, but it wasn't because of ADHD, it's because I have like a slight dyslexia, and I didn't know that until like my dad told me. It's like it's like not a serious one, but it's like a minor one where it's like I have to probably read a whole chapter 2 or 3 times, and I have to read it really fucking slow, right? So for you, it could be like some ADHD thing where it's like your mind moves so fast, like Sonic the Hedgehog, and if it's not something that keeps you like engaged, this is so fucking boring. I don't like it, and it doesn't. Cause that's why I don't like when Black people sometimes when we say something, it's like we're the most talented because we have to go from a place of survival at all times.
Right.
But the mediocrity isn't you. It's more of like how our brain works or how your brain works.
Yeah,
and how
for
it takes
sure.
It in. Yeah.
I never.
So not that you took it personally, but I just want to make sure.
No, not at all. I don't like. I mean, the ADD conversation. My mother wasn't even having it at that time, and I think later on in my life, I ended up getting tested, and I don't have it. I just don't think I felt like it, and it's not even a big deal if I had it. Either way, it was a big deal. I just never felt supported in things that I wanted to do. Yeah. So it was hard for me to focus in, the stuff that I had to do, if that makes any sense. And yeah, I mean, that's just kind of how the law thing came to work out. It just was
because that's like after the summers of Camp Mariah, you started doing like the program that you said.
So Camp Mariah, was like 7th grade. It was like 6th, 7th, and 8th grade.
Okay.
And I could not do that 8th grade year because that was the summer going into, I think, high school. And I needed to do, like, that legal outreach program is a college-bound program. And I had cousins who'd done it before me, and they ended up going to, like, Hampton and Howard. So they had a track record of success. And the thing is that Fresh Air Fund was the same kind of program. They had after schools and things like this, but it wasn't as, the tracks were a little different. This was a little more rigorous. And so my mother wanted me to do this. And one day after junior high school, maybe the 8th grade, their offices used to be on 145th and St. Nicholas. We went. I did an interview with the director, one of the directors at the time. Her name was Miss Cooper and Mr. I can't remember his name, but he's a lawyer now too. And it was, like, I was nervous, but, like, I didn't really want to do it. So it was like no sweat off of my back, there was a writing portion that I was annoyed that I had to do, but I did that. Got in the program. And honestly, another place where, like, my very best friends are also from this program. But it was a college-bound program, very rigorous, very, very, just impressive, really. And our first program was this thing called the Summer Law Institute. And in that summer, they crammed, like, the first year of law school into that summer. And at the time, I was 12 or 13. So, yes, that's kind of how I was spending all my summers up until college. That the program was a 4-year situation. So that was 2009-ish. After that summer... Yeah, like, you have to be accepted into the second part of the program, which is the college-bound situation. And I was. And everything after that, the reason I was able to be successful in high school was because of that program. Because I went to Mary Bertram, and it just wasn't... Mary Bertram really wasn't focused on our academics at all. It was like a school...
Isn't it like a sports powerhouse or something like that?
I think they wanted to be, but the girls were, which I managed that team for a small time. But the girls were, I think they won like 13 or 14 city championships in a row. So yes, they were. But on a, like, academic side, it was horrible.
Okay.
Social side, it wasn't horrible, but no, I'm lying to you. It was horrible. It was very grown in a way that I wasn't used to.
Elaborate.
It's like New York City high school. Like, this first time I went to school with people from Brooklyn. So I had Camp Mariah, where I met people from Brooklyn, and we were, summer and doing social things. And now I'm going to school with them and, like, knowing, not even just people from Brooklyn, but kids from all over the city. Everyone is, like, either Black or Latino.
And where's the school located again?
Pearl Street, which is, like, right next to One Police Plaza.
So it's like, okay, that's the school that's right by, like, the
Brooklyn Bridge.
Yeah, okay.
It's the school you literally see as you're driving over Brooklyn Bridge. Yeah, it was like a melting pot, because that's, like, right off of Chinatown, you know what I mean? So, it was a melting pot. It had everything in it. But the school, for the most part, was, like, it was violent. Like, we didn't have metal detectors, but we probably should have. There was a lot of fights and things like that. But I think that's where that's no lie. Bertram is really where I learned, like, street culture in a funny way. Because, like I said, like, I grew up in the projects, but my whole family lives there, so it's giving princess, Like, even if there was someone who wanted to touch me, they'd never make it. You know what I'm saying? So there was a lot of things that I missed because I was, like, protected,
Oh, okay. So it's kind of like, it's not that you didn't have street structure. You did, but you had a certain level.
Yeah, I just was, like, protected. Yeah, it was like naive,
you knew, like, being in this ecosystem of, like, what it's like to be where you have, like, no beefs, like, no, like, external threats. Like, well, even if you did, it was probably minuscule. But, like, when you're outside, like, oh, people be really, like, fighting, like, be like moving this way.
That's where what Bertram was for me. Like, oh, y'all be fighting, like, you. Like, I'm not incriminating anyone, so I'm not going to say too much, but
it was,
like, it was just kind of, like, moments where I was like, oh, like, that's real. It's not like this did not just happen and like lean on me, you know? So it just like kind of Bertram, like, yes, that's what I would say about that. I felt like that's where I got, you know, most of my street culture from. But that's also where I learned what like fashion stuff was popping and stuff, like, you know what I mean? Because I mean, living in Dyckman, I feel like I just was getting everything last. And I hadn't really, like, I have friends in Harlem, but I didn't have like a strong like Harlem like
connection.
Right. So yeah, it was Bertram was a very interesting time for me. But I spent a lot of my high school years like focused at legal outreach. It was like I had homework and things. I had Saturday writing classes. I had after school every day. I was there 6 days a week. My whole high school career.
All right. So what I'm kind of like gathering, right, from this entire thing of, so in high school, you were part of the kind of like that legal outreach. And before that, you had Camp Mariah. And then before that, you had like that family thing, right? Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like every summer you're doing something, right?
Every single summer in my life, I always had something.
Yeah, well, and it continues, right?
Right.
But when it comes to like that routine, like that discipline of whether it's like learning microaggressions in like Caucasian households, right? And just understanding like life lessons, right? And then Camp Mariah when it comes to like learning the foundational things of like, these are the things that's going to help you get to this level so you can operate, learning more about music, learning more about these things, and just making friends in the city, right? Now, in high school, you already admitted like the school that you went to wasn't that good, but the fact that you're in like the outreach program, it really forced you to be on such a routine, like
right. It added rigor to my course load. So most of the people who went to legal outreach were going to like top high schools in the city. There was a decent number of us who didn't, but the ones who didn't was like, you know, always performing at an A level. Even me at Bertram, I wasn't really an A student. I just was like, I'm easily distracted. I wanted to be in the mix. Like, it was just, but I was always like, at Bertram, I was always like outperforming the kids, but at legal outreach, I wasn't. And yeah, I just kind of like always been kind of like a kind of student, but the work was always, you know, done. My grades, my test scores were always high. So I just kind of like, I just like, I don't know, went with that.
But wait, I want to say, because I don't think you probably even try to like think about those times. But for me, it's fascinating because I was in a similar program where in this area, you're way better than a lot of people, right? So you're like, not that you're feeling yourself in a cocky way, but it's like, in this place, like I'm
fish,
here,
little
right?
pond,
like big fish. Well,
yeah, and then little fish, big pond.
No Meek Mills, big fish, right? And it's like, in this place, you kind of see the difference in not only just resources, but genetic talent, right? I'm not going to say that anybody's smarter than me, but if you have more resources to like get a lot of these kind of like key areas of knowledge in your brain, you're going to be more advanced than me. So you're not better than me. You just have more tools in your kit.
It just was a different environment. So Bertram was just not academically focused. I'm sorry.
I got you.
Bertram just wasn't academically focused. So period. And at legal outreach, which everyone there was like Black, Latino, people of color, immigrants, legal and illegal. We were all academically focused. The program came with a pledge and a commitment. Like real life, there was a pledge that we had to recite. I can't even think about it right now, but it just was, I just was never that girl. Like, if someone says to me, "Nay, you can't get an A on that," I'm gonna go get an A on that. But just was never a time I was kind of fiending to be an A student. And legal outreach kind of did change that for me. It just kind of was, it's not about being an A student, it's about always putting your best foot forward. And that's something I really learned there. And I think it just drove the point home in how, if you do, how that stuff comes back to you. There was a lot of incentives at legal outreach. They treated us like adults. So there was a lot of incentives for when we did do well, kind of like in your adult life sometimes. And so I did do well for those reasons. And yeah, like I think that legal outreach really taught me how, well, outside of like the social stuff, it taught me how to write. We had writing classes on Saturdays for the whole 4 years we were there. It also taught me how to money manage. We used to get stipends for those writing classes at the end of each school semester. So
okay.
you get a stipend in December, then a stipend in May. Then in the summers, we'd have internships. We had to earn those internships throughout the year via our writing classes. So you need to turn in all your assignments to qualify for internships. So they made sure that the ecosystem was done up in a way that you'd survive a university without ever even being to one. That's the real reason I was able to survive going to Brandeis. You know what I mean? And yeah, it just was like they were adding rigor to students' workload because we weren't all at Stuyvesant or Brooklyn Tech. Is that the name of the school?
Yeah, I went to Brooklyn Tech. But
you went to Brooklyn Tech?
I did.
See?
Yeah. It was,
See?
No, it was cool, but I appreciate like that program because being at like the specialized high schools, because at that time there's only 3, now we're at like 12. Getting into a specialized high school, it's not like a meal ticket, but if you can survive, like a person that gets like a 75 in a specialized high school can make like a 90 everywhere else because the type of like workload you're getting, you're getting so much work that by the time you go to college, I don't know anybody that didn't finish college that goes to do a specialized high school because you've already been through like this place that's always, you gotta get ready for college. Like, yo, you guys are way harder than college.
And that's basically why legal outreach was what it was. They were like, some people are just not good test takers. So you're not getting into specialized high school because you didn't eat breakfast that morning? I mean, not fair,
It'd
right? So that's what, they really did it in a strategic way. And I'm really so grateful for that program and in debt to a lot of the folks who worked there just for like being mentors to me at that time. And all the students who were involved and still involved in legal outreach, they really do dedicate a lot of time, effort, and energy to make sure that we're all getting like the education we deserve. And I don't think we, at the time, were appreciative of it because we just kind of was like, I mean, my mother said I got to be here.
Yeah, you just want to get it over with.
Yeah, you're like, my mother said I got to be here, so.
But I do want to say before we go to it, he says it was Brandeis?
Yeah,
Brandeis? Okay, 'cause I was about to say something completely wrong, right? So this whole foundational like period, and that's why I love like actually setting aside a time of like the childhood to like the adolescence to the teenage before you get to young adult and college of like you have all the skills to do whatever it is you want to do. I think the most important thing is what actually piques your interest, right? So now we're doing like the law track. When do you get to the point of the law track where it's like, I don't really fuck with this no more? Like when did you realize that this is just not your lane no more?
You know, I don't ever really think. So legal outreach did use law to get us into college, but I did know sometime in the middle of doing that training that I was not going to do this for the rest of my life. I just didn't have enough like mental discipline to get through the stuff I need to learn for law school. And I knew going into college that I wasn't going, period. And, but I had no clue going into college what I majored in. And I really, looking back on it, I don't even remember if I really wanted to go to college. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I just knew that it was something I had to do. I knew it was an achievement. You know what I mean? Like for me to go, I was first generation. So for me to go to college is like a big deal. And, that really was the main mission of legal outreach. And once, I really understood that and I just felt free to like, as long as I go to school, then I'll be fine. You know what I mean? And, so going into school, I knew I probably wouldn't do law. I was kind of into politics a bit. So I thought I was going to do political science. It's the first D I ever got was in my political science class. I'm not doing this shit. And I just kind of bounced around for a bit in college from classes to class before I really settled down on like Black studies and sociology and stuff. I still like didn't really know what I wanted to do midway through college. Shit, when I graduated college, I don't think I knew what I wanted to do. I just knew the things that I was kind of good at. I knew what I enjoyed doing and I knew what I could do well. And yeah, that's kind of how the law thing, just kind of, and to be honest, it still hasn't gone away because I've actually been thinking about it recently, like, law school, maybe something I could do.
I mean, you could. I just let you know, like, you watching Shakira, right, with Molly and stuff?
For surely.
I love Molly, but when it comes to like those tests and stuff like that, I think it's a bit much, right? But I think it's important. So you finish university and now you're kind of like, because I see from like the work experience, this is why it's very important, because it's like, obviously there's like 3 positions that you have and 2 of them are what people will probably like zone in on. But I'm always looking at the entire brevity of what you have. So is it right after college you started working with the Dyckman Youth Enterprises? Like, is that the correct order or is it a different order?
No, I worked the first time I ever worked at Dyckman, which is Dyckman Youth Enterprises, which is Dyckman Basketball, was 14. Okay. We all start working there at 14. Everyone in my family who, you know,
it's family business.
Yeah, who's like connected to us on this side. Our first job at 14 is SYEP, and we have SYEP kids at Dyckman. So from 14 to like 18 or 19, I worked at Dyckman every summer, even if I didn't work there. Like I had 2 jobs for a bit because I would get the check from there. I think that's illegal. Maybe I shouldn't say it.
We're just gonna.
He said maybe it's illegal to say it. But
quick, Jomo, Cat, erase that other part with 2 jobs and like the whole thing. Well, we're just gonna like.
Maybe it isn't. But I
think just in case, we're gonna blur this section.
Yeah,
and we're gonna just go forward. So I'm gonna watch this. We're gonna blur this. But you had that. So through that, you were always from like 14 onward. You've been connected to Dyckman Youth.
Yeah, so I worked at Dyckman from 14 to 18.
Okay.
And then like on a summer youth tip. And then there was a summer that I didn't get summer youth where I was like my uncle's assistant or something.
Okay.
And then we moved into marketing as he started to loop me into those meetings. And then there was this girl who is now the senior vice president at Interscope Records, who is from Dyckman as well, had come to me, I think it could have been via Instagram or via it was text. I don't remember where she got my number from, but she texted me. It was the summer of 2015, no, 2013. One of these summers, it don't matter. Like 2013, it might have been though, like either 2013 or 2014, something like this. Barrelyn texted me and she wanted to intern at Dyckman. And I was going to be there that summer, connected her with Kenny, which is my uncle, who's the executive director. And she interned, and I think she started our Snapchat and our Instagram.
That's fine.
Or we had an Instagram, but she started our Snapchat, and I think she got our Instagram to 10K. And I think she only interned that summer. She didn't come back after that. So once she did that, it was like, all right, now we need to actually put content on this platform. And so that's when I came in. That's where I came in. I always kind of had a knack for like the brand side of things. Just the presentation, right? Like I think there's somewhere in my head I thought I would I could do advertising, if that you know what I mean? So I think like immediately when I like got on Instagram, I'm like, oh my God, like this is I can make build a brand on here. Like I remember that immediately thinking that. And fast forward to now that Dyckman has an Instagram, I immediately just was like, this is going to be this place that we have to house everything. Because at the time I hadn't our website, we hadn't really had, like we had a website, but it kind of was more existing as like an archive and things like this. And in college, we'll go back to the things I did in college because that's really when I was like, okay, so I'm a boss for real. But in college, I had started a blog called The Great Movement, and I had built a website for that. And I had built a website the first or second year Squarespace was out. Nobody was using it at the time. I had a website called The Great Movement on that. I had a couple writers on that, and my friend Aaliyah and I just kind of figured that out. And I don't know, I just got discouraged kind of and stopped doing it. But I do remember I had these drops on all of these like popular radio stations at the time, but it still felt like the needle wasn't moving. one of my biggest flaws back then was that I really did think success was supposed to happen for me overnight. And like on the hottest radio station in Atlanta, on Hot 97 in New York, I had like figured out how to get the great movement drops on that. And I just didn't think it was that big of a deal. It just wasn't giving me the responses I thought I should have had. And I don't know, either way, we dissolved it basically. So I had picked up those same skills and I started doing that on the Dyckman Instagram and things. And I kind of had like at Dyckman, because of my position and how close I was to kind of like the founders and stuff like this, I kind of gave like main character energy. So I was a socialite really in the park. And to be honest, it's the only place I had felt really like comfortable to be that way for a long time, because I was just, like I was always like a heavier girl and always from Dyckman, and people didn't really know what that was for a long time. And I was always a little peculiar. Like I was just never really fit in fully. And I felt like being at Dyckman, it being a family business and me being able to do really what I wanted here, I was like, yeah, this is my sweet spot. And I kind of just made a plan to kind of ride that sweet spot into where we are right now. And I had to figure out what I was really good at here. And I did that on Instagram. I really loved social media. Even before Instagram, I was in love with Snapchat. So that's kind of where this whole Dyckman journey really starts in a more like the most professional capacity that I could say it. I just started doing things. Like I would go places and tell people that, what I did and the tournament that I was associated with, and I would meet folks and we would connect, and I was building my network. It was a lot of like groundwork, a lot of guerrilla marketing.
So you're like a street team by yourself.
For real though.
One woman street team.
For real though, because Dyckman's a nonprofit. So we don't really have like the systems and things set up to have things like that. We don't have like budget buckets, you know what I mean? You just get the money, you spend on what we need and move on. And I had just really been feeling that our influence, because I was at Brandeis and people were buying the shorts off of me for $20 a pair in Boston. Like that's when I was like, oh yeah, like this is what we're doing. Like Dyckman basketball is what we're doing. And even when I would go places, and I would meet people and I would tell them I was from Dyckman, the first thing they would say to me is either, are you Dominican and do you play basketball? And I'm like, oh, funny thing you say that because this is who I am. And that kind of worked for me. And that's really, no lie, that's how I kind of got outside in New York City. Like when I went away to college, I was like in heaven a little bit because I never felt like I fit in New York City. I couldn't figure out my lane. And then when I graduated or right before I graduated and I came back, and I was hanging out with Cheyenne at the time a lot. Me and Cheyenne are really close. And she was taking me to a lot of places and like SOBs. That's how I met Mouse and Taki, Julius, and getting on Twitter. Honestly, that's how I got outside. And so when I kind of put the whole ecosystem together, and I was like, okay, social media, connecting to the community in this way, where do I fit in? And I was like, okay, well, I know what I know, and I know that I can apply those things to what we do at Dyckman basketball, and that could be successful. And so I just did that. And this is how we got what we are now. I didn't really plan to turn it into a media team or anything like that. But after you like learn some of the legal things behind content creation and all of that stuff, I just built on top of it.
Okay. You did a lot. Also, the whole hustling, like Dyckman's shorts in Boston, and people, if you don't understand, Boston be getting really cold. Like,
right.
I don't know how
short, and that's what I'm saying. Like, that's when I was really like like I'm selling basketball shorts in negative degrees. That's when I was like, oh, wait. I think that's when I've just always been business minded, low key, and I think it took me a long time to realize that about myself. But when that was happening, I just was kind of like, word. it's the dead of winter and I just made $1,000. You know what I mean? So it just was. It was a turning point for me because I was like, yo, I think I can really take our family to another level. And I just been there ever since. I've been in that bag ever since.
Okay. So I want to discuss because I saw Microsoft because you were in I think in
across the street, the next building, a building over.
Yeah, it's over there, corporate receptionist, and after that you were part of the Right Group LLC communications.
I'm still at the Right Group.
You're still there. So have you always been like a 2-job, 3-job mommy type of thing, or you just always kind of like working?
Kind of. I mean, at least in there was a time when right after I graduated, I got the Microsoft job, which was through like a recruiting agency or something.
Staffing agency, blah, blah.
Yeah, the job was really with CBRE, and they manage the building Microsoft, and so I was working with CBRE via Microsoft, and it was great. At the time, it was my first like big girl job, and I really liked it. I was around all these tech people, and I felt like I was in a startup space. This is probably first time I ever told the story, but I could not be on time. And I was kind of arrogant. Like I thought I would not be fired, and I was. I was absolutely fired because I could not be on time, and that was like one of the biggest lessons I've ever learned. Like I was just like, this punctuality thing is important. Like, I mean, I've always known that, but I was always able to like finagle it.
Yeah, you can finesse it. When you have a good personality, you be like, I'm gonna make it work. But like after a while, people be like, yo, bro.
Right. And it's like you learn like people's time is valuable. And I was unemployed for a long time after that. Like I did a couple of like temps things, but I was unemployed for a long time after that, at least a year. And that was really difficult. But those temp things that I was doing, and even just like working, I think I did 2 summers. I had to be unemployed for longer than that because I remember doing 2 summers at Dyckman unemployed. And so even working at Dyckman is one thing, but like Dyckman is kind of a volunteer situation, or was for a while.
Because they were still like in the younger portions of their growth.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. This is like coming into between 20 and 25 years. So we're definitely already booming, but we're a nonprofit. So everything that
it's not like shining, like, when tech companies just throw money. Like you're slowly building up like the thing, but you're still making impact.
But this was actually the height, like our height, because this is like Team Nike Summers. So but right before Team Nike Summers, like I was kind of in and out there because I was in college. Yeah. So there was just a lot of things going on for me, like during summers. So I wasn't super present at Dyckman. Like, you know what I mean? The way that people associate me with Dyckman, and I wasn't committed in that way. But we were also a nonprofit, so everything coming in was going right back into the tournament and like, and into the community. So, there's a stipend situation, and that was working, but I had not been getting like a steady paycheck in 2 summers, I remember. And then 2018 comes, and Brianna, who I met at Camp Raya, I never get on Facebook, and I got on Facebook one day, and she's like, anybody looking for a job? Send me a text or something. So I sent her a text like, hey, I'm looking for a job. And no lie, I sent her my resume. I went for that interview the next day with my boss. His name is John Wright. He's a black man. The principal of that firm. It's a lobbying firm. And I went into that interview the next day, and I got that job that day. That was a Friday, I think. I started that Monday, and I've been there ever since. I've been there 3 years.
Congrats.
Thank you. Yeah, I've been there 3 years. It's like my daytime.
So it's your daytime also. That's like
for sure.
You get the money to buy the fits and do all the things.
I actually have to. I cannot say that's a daytime job because I really am working all around the clock for the Right Group. Is just how the nature of our work. That's kind of how we have to do it. Okay. But in the sense of like the things that I do during the day and versus the things I do at night, yes, my daytime job, and then I get off there and I go work at Dyckman, and that's how my life works. Yeah.
So when did you? And just by looking at just one more time, make sure I'm saying this right. you became like the account coordinator and brand manager. This is when you were talking about taking over social. But when is that officially like this is Naya's job?
Which one?
The come back, Howard.
So the account.
Back.
So I was.
So wait, are you doing both of them at the same time, or are you doing one at a time? I don't because you had like
which one? At Dyckman or at the right group?
I'm focused back on Dyckman. So the account.
I'm a media director right now. I was an account coordinator and a brand manager and executive assistant between the years of like 2013 and like 2018.
Oh, you have years. Okay. Yeah. So that shift over into the director space is kind of like long time coming of like that evolution.
Right, because where else was they gonna put me after that?
Okay.
But it just kind of is. The media director thing happened just because I was the only one who really had a vision for any of the content that was being made at Dyckman.
Okay.
Right, like where can I? The first thing I was asking myself was where can I see this stuff again? The way I just imagine it first. I imagine the end product. So I'm always imagining a documentary. I'm imagining a show on like a Showtime, the way Snoop used to have his football team on Showtime. The same way. I always imagine things like that. And so I work backwards from there and I'm like, what do I need to make something like that happen? I need content. And so that's how I really came up with doing a media team. And so I had that idea for a bit, but didn't know any shooters. So I had committed to putting myself on the ground at Dyckman. I'm like, all right. So, because the way that I used to do Dyckman is that I used to, something that you don't have written in your notes is that I worked at the city council for a while. So in the summers, I used to work at the city council. I used to go home, change, and then go to the park. And by the time I would get to the park, we'd probably be in the middle of the second game. So I was there more for social things, some work, but more for play. And then, once I came up with this idea that like I want to start some type of team that's focused on the content that we're creating at Dyckman, I worked backwards, and it was a girl who most of the city knows as Shay, or Shayla, who was coming already with a camera for years, just capturing the full day at Dyckman. So me and her got really close about 2018 too, like 2018 or 2017, something like this. And I was saying to her, like, I want to meet people. I want to meet the people in this like industry. Like, I want to meet all the playmakers. I want them to know who I am. I want them to know who Dyckman is. And I want, like I still have very specific goals about how I want people to interact with Dyckman and our brand and what they should know about our brand and things like that. And she just took me outside with her, and we went to tournaments around the country and to events around the country, and met people. And Shay's my road dog. Like, we can go anywhere and we are going to meet everyone. And 9 times out of 10, everyone, like, Shay knows everybody, but that was really the turning point at Dyckman. I just kind of got outside. I was able to meet the people in basketball, and I was able to do what we call pitching and marketing. And at the time, I didn't know I was marketing, I just kind of was working, and I knew what I had a vision, And this is not, and I think, like, so the way that I work is not necessarily like this stuff was stuff that me and my uncle were necessarily talking about. I just had the vision. And I really am big on bringing someone the end product. Like, I really, in elementary school and things like that, I used to fail at group projects for that reason.
Oh, like everyone working cohesively?
Yeah, I'm trying to bring somebody an end product. You know what I mean? So either way, yes. So that's kind of how the team starts to come together, the idea of it. And then the summer of 2018, Nia comes to shoot in the park. I don't remember who invites her, but somebody invites her, and the pictures go up, and I'm like, this is exactly how I see Dyckman through my eyes. Like, the photo she took, I'm like, this is exactly how I feel it. This is exactly how I see it. I want her to come work for me. So I, kind of like, I might be lying. I don't think Nia was first. I don't know if Nia came first or if Kojo came first. I think it was Nia, but I don't remember how the introduction happened. But either way, we were introduced to each other. I pitched something to her, and she's like, "Yeah, I'd love to come work with you guys." And she started to work with us. summer of 2019, I believe, I just came back. We came back, and I had more shooters. So the team grew. I had more shooters. I had Kojo. And now it just was looking like a real team, and we were able to create content and like really run the social media like a professional page.
Okay, like an agency.
Yeah, like an agency, literally. And so that's exactly how we get all the things you get today, and how that's who I am today. That's how we are here, and that's how you get the content you get at Dyckman. Just all these people who are already coming into the park with cameras. I literally just grabbed them and was like, "Hey, do you want to work with me? This is what I'm thinking. Do you want to come work with me?" And they were like, "Yeah, I'd love to." And I'm really loyal to that team, and they're really loyal to me. And I'm really grateful for that, because I think content creators don't get enough
kudos.
Yeah, not kudos. You get paid enough. Fuck kudos, okay? People don't want kudos.
Do not pay them any exposure.
Yeah, people. I mean, people want their flowers where they can smell them. But I think something that I always thought about anytime I've watched any of the content that Dyckman has produced is that we should be getting paid a lot more for this than we do. And that's kind of how that team formed, and that's how that's, I guess, the ethos of that. And I can't really tell you if that team will turn into an agency or not. It is my hope. But I think right now I have some other goals I need to bang out before I can really corporatize that team, I think.
Is this still part of the goals? Is still part of the Dyckman aspect, or are those a personal goal that you need to fulfill first?
Well, now it's kind of like personal team goals that I need to fulfill, because I think, I think just the whole vision has grown a little bit bigger than just Dyckman. You know what I mean? Like, Dyckman's a great stepping stone for me, and Dyckman basketball is like, it's my baby. You know what I mean? Like, that is somewhere you'll always know to find me. But I always am wondering, what else could we do, Like, we love shooting basketball, but some of those shooters are so talented, and I'm like, what if we really were producing the marketing for, people's albums and, magazines or concerts, or, creating visual experiences for, podcasts. Like, that's kind of where my head is, just because I know how talented that team is, and just because I know like where creativity can go. And I think it just is selling ourselves short to just like, narrowly tailor everything that we're doing just to Dyckman basketball. But that is the team's priority. You know what I mean? But it just kind of, those are new ideas, there are things that I've been sitting with for a little while. The more people I meet, the more work that I, start to get asked to do. I'm like, this can really be bigger than what I intended it to be. And so I just, am trying to feel it out and see if it's my purpose. Right now, I feel, content with doing it. So, but yeah, that's, I guess, the future of the team is maybe an agency.
So just by doing like a quick... I don't want to even say it, but, Spotify has that wrap-up thing. You Spotify users jealous. A little hating because I got Apple Music. But just, young Naya, right?
Yep.
Huh?
Yep, I'm listening.
Oh, because I thought I said your name wrong.
No, Naya.
Okay, cool. I'm so self-conscious because I think I was saying either Nia or someone else's name wrong. Nia's not here right now. Shout out to you. Shooter season. Young girl that still has big dreams. Want to be an entertainer. She claims she's tone deaf, right? She didn't see someone like her in that space, so she shifted off to law. Then she got us like, yeah, I'm definitely not doing this, but this is a skill that I have learned that's going to take me further, right? And you can always come back to it. Hell, if it comes to the agency, if you want to make sure you look at the contracts and books when you do that, like I know I'm not gonna try to like finagle. This is family business, right? And now you're at a point of you have seen this for half. I'm not trying to age you, but like half your life. Like, it's been part of your life, but you've been part of it for half your life. Like, now it's probably leaning past half of it, right?
No, half.
It's like
half.
At half. Yeah. Okay, cool. Not trying to age her. So with that, it's like this. You're probably going to be doing something in connection to Dyckman for a long time, but how does that look? Like that evolution of your experience as you've kind of gone from like an EA to an account coordinator to the brand to now like a a media director, marketing director.
Media director.
Yeah, I want to get this right because those are different titles, right? And now you're trying to look further, right? Because I think now I'm not really sure at how the other tournaments are set up because I think the only tournament I actually got to see for like 2 seconds was like West 4th. Mm-hmm. But like it could be something where you can not freelance a team because those are going at a different thing, but actually make money after like doing the media coverage for different tournaments. Obviously, your best shooters you got to keep for Dyckman, but like extend it out to like maybe helping the rest of the city get like that same visibility to help the brand. Because yes, we want Dyckman to be one of the best in New York City.
No, that's not what we want. We want it to be the best.
Oh, you are? Okay, well, the best. Yeah. Okay, all right, cool. When one of the best, that was humbly. That was me humbly saying it. You see, the confidence is different. Humbly and confidence. Like, no, we are the best, right? Yeah, okay, cool. So they're the best. And that's what is like, what I'm saying is a little unsettling. Like, it's hard to like want to help other people. But that's why you say it doesn't have to be basketball. It could be something else.
Dyckman basketball, and maybe the other tournaments wouldn't say this, but it's on record. We are the most communal. Like, we are always looping folks in so that everyone can get paid and everyone, like, we are about the community. It's not, we don't think we're in competition with anybody in the city. That's not real. It's really us versus everybody else. That's how we see it, but it's not necessarily a city thing. It's like New York City for us versus everybody else.
Okay.
We're not like, we all like one of the reasons we don't like doing kind of like intra-city battles in our park is because we don't win. Dyckman, like, no one wins when the family feuds kind of thing.
So you mean like if we were to like...
We'll play DC, we'll play Philly.
Okay, because it reminds me of like those, there have been shows where you have been like New York versus Philly versus
right,
DC
we'll do those things,
Miami.
but it doesn't make sense for us to do really like Uptown versus Brooklyn.
Yeah, we don't. Okay.
You know what I mean? Like those kind of things, it just doesn't, no one wins there.
Yeah, because it doesn't help us.
But I think that it also is to be said that we worked really hard to be where we are, and we just kind of revel in it because we're really professional.
Okay.
Dyckman basketball is a professional basketball tournament, like, and we always present it as such. For years, we were walking around in Nike polos with the logos on them. Like, that is like unheard of in most like tournament things. You know what I mean? A lot of that stuff is coming out of pocket. It has to be a vision for it, really. And the same way you build any event from the ground up, that's the same way we do Dyckman. Those bleachers are not there in that park before we get there. You know what I mean? So it really is, I think, to wrap this all up and bring it home. Mm-hmm. I think Dyckman basketball was the place where I was able to be a hands-on learner. You know what I mean? Like, school for me is not, I'm not the greatest student because I need to learn hands-on. I need to be outside in the field. You know what I mean? And Dyckman basketball was the first place where I was like, this is a business. I want to learn how to run a business. And I want to learn all the parts and the kinks to it. Mm-hmm. And I was able to do that there. And then I was able to carve out my own lane and figure out, okay, so what am I good at? And how am I going to run this business? And all those kind of things. And that's what Dyckman basketball has done for me, outside of the fact that I am the media director and I do this stuff. And I think you said something earlier about me being like one of the most influential women there. And I think, while I'm really proud and humbled by that, you know what I mean? It's just not true, Like, I
didn't say I said one of.
No. But I still don't even believe that. I just don't think I don't think I've even done enough, yet to be influential. Like, okay. I think that tournament, the influence that you see of it is really something that my uncle and Miss Sharon and that team has really been able, before I was there, has cemented. And where my team is, we're just trying to take it further so that in 20 years when we are retiring, that the stuff that we did is just a staple. You know what I mean? Okay. And so, I love everything that I do at Dyckman basketball, but there's also to be said that there's where I am now is I'm also thinking bigger than that. Like, love, doing this, but also where else could I take it? You know what I mean? Like, in a 5-year time, Dyckman basketball would be in every city to me. You know what I mean? Like, we'd be in everyone's park. Everyone would have a Dyckman basketball park in their city if it was up to me. You know what I mean?
Question. So, wait, did you guys recently pass, like, the 30-year mark, 35-year mark?
30, yeah, 30.
Okay, because I want to make sure, because I feel like numbers, I think there was, like, a new a logo I think Kojo worked on or something like that.
Right. Yeah, like, Kojo's our lead our lead designer and assistant media director, as he has named himself.
I mean,
and which is okay.
Shout out to him.
100%. Like Kojo is one of those folks that I got a call like in text tons of times a day in the summer, and he's working overtime for us and making things look great. And I'm really big on branding and what it looks like and what people feel when they see it. And Kojo gets that. Like, I'm not putting anything up that does not work with this brand. You know what I mean? I think I'm really professional in that sense. I don't. I'm not going to bend on that, you know? And I think a lot of what I do with this team and what I do at Dyckman is really preparing me for whatever the next level of my life is. But I think more than that, like, these folks that I'm doing it with, I think they're coming with me too.
Yeah.
And I think I just made it a point to make the space that we work in a creative one, a professional one, and a place where, you know, people feel safe. And, you know, that's really hard. I remember when I was training with Irv and I would say to Irv, like, this is fucking hard. Like, I don't want to, like, we do not train anymore. But when we were training, I was like, say, this is fucking hard. Like, I don't do this anymore. And I have the screenshot in my phone, this text he sent me. He's like, no. Running a team is hard. He's like, having to make sure these people get their bills paid is hard. He's like, working out is the easiest thing you're gonna do every day. And I mean, days that I do think I'm gonna go to the gym, that's the quote I look at. But it's true. Like, I never, that work is not hard to me. You know what I mean? Holding my team down and making sure that they can eat, that work really isn't hard to me. It just has to be done. You know what I mean? Much harder for me to get up to go to the gym.
Look, listen, it's cold. It's cold. But like, I do want to, like, as we're kind of like coming to the full circle moment of, you know, it's not the end. This is why I'm super self-aware in how I talk. It's like, it's not the end. It's like a portion of the journey. Someone else is probably going to interview 5-10 years from now with an additional thing. And even what you're talking about, it, like you and Kojo, like, you guys have like the foundational pieces for a Dyckman media agency, right? And Dyckman basketball media agency. So I was thinking about that. I don't know if I should say it, but hopefully by then they'll probably take that idea and just run with it. Hopefully I get some shorts.
No, for real.
Some shorts, I gotta pay for it.
All of those things are in the works, for sure.
But don't want to like have those secrets. But I do want to say, like, you know, as someone that I don't really get to talk to as much, I probably talk to you a lot more from social media, so wishing you happy birthday, seeing you kind of like flourish.
We're not really friends.
Yeah, we're more peers.
Yeah, we can be friends. You want to be my friend, Skip?
I mean, absolutely. I got my phone all the time. Like, I'm down. Like, you know, I got to meet you, and I think this is second time meeting you in person.
Maybe.
I think it's like second, third. But I'm always down. To have friends. But I think I have enjoyed seeing you blossom from the time that I've seen you in your life. Does that make sense? Like, from what I've seen to now.
I'm very different. Like, I think maybe the first time we've ever encountered each other might have been 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And I'm a very different person. I think I just didn't, like, that, the vision I'm telling you about now just had kind of come to me 3 years ago. Yeah. And so it just is really, like, I don't know if I know what my purpose is, but I move with purpose, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Like,
well, you move with the purpose and intention.
Yeah. And at the time I just wasn't. And that's like when I was saying earlier, like, I was just outside and like building my network. When I met you 3 years ago, I had just gotten outside and I was building my network. And I just kind of needed to figure out who was who in the city to make things happen. You know what I mean? And I didn't have a lot of vision and stuff. And I think... You
said pieces.
Yeah, I just had like pieces. I had ideas and stuff like that. And now I just have vision. You know what I mean? I know what I'm doing, and I kind of know who I am. So I don't... It's like I don't... I think when I first came outside back then, I just felt like, okay, I need to impress these people or something, maybe.
Fuck that.
And I also kind of... One of the reasons that I don't tweet a lot, because I feel like people are always asking me, but is because it felt like it just was like too much of a cluster fuck kind of thing. Like, I just felt like I'm like seeing these people tweeting their ideas all day on social media, and then I'm coming into like these networking events with all these people who I feel like I know, but I don't really know in person. It was too much anxiety that I don't usually have, and I was like, you know what, Twitter. I have to pick my social sites, and me and Twitter, I'm just have to take a break off of that. And I felt like I just wanted to meet folks more organically. And that was definitely tripping me up, like going to like a bunch of like, they weren't Twitter meetups, but it would be like somebody, it'd be like Taki throwing an event, and everybody on the timeline there. And I'm like, oh, all these people I'm tweeting all day who I don't really know. You know what I mean?
So it felt like for you, it was like breaking the fourth wall, because it was just a lot of stimulus where it's like, these are the Twitter mixy events. Where
and I wasn't like that mixy just yet. So I was like, I don't really know how to break into these circles and get to know folks. And honestly, Taki was the person who was like, you don't need to be next to these people for your thing to work. And I just stopped. I just stopped hanging out with people and stopped going to those events because I didn't want to be at them. Truly. Yeah. The last event I went to is where I met Kojo. And that was God's purpose, was for me to be there to meet Kojo, and that was it. Actually, I met Kojo and Rain there.
Shout out to Kojo and Rain.
And I just stopped. I was like, I don't really enjoy this, and I feel like it's hard for me to fake it. And I'm just much happier doing it the way that I do it. Like, I'm outside and I do meet people, but I like for it to be an organic thing.
I think for you, and it makes sense because I think it's different with you. With now you're kind of like really progressing like media for like your the product, which is Dyckman Basketball. I think even for me, I don't really need. I think I've hit the threshold. I don't need to go to all these events, right? Because I'm technically comedian. I'm technically an actor. I'm a podcaster. So it really is.
Technically, you are.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not consistent. It's just I'm seasonal. Like I can't do it every week because I'm doing mad stuff. And I think once you say you don't know your purpose, but I just don't think you have the words to describe it yet. But I think when it comes to everything that you've done, it really is. I think your purpose is. I don't want to say extending, but refining family legacy. Because when it comes to like refining something, you're making it just better quality, like higher levels of like output, of like just bigger worth. Like, you know, the symbol gets more platinum, because platinum is like one. I thought it was cheesy when I was younger because everyone wanted to get like, but like platinum is like one of the most purest like metals, right? And it's like when you have something that just lasts forever, and that's what you ideally want for this family business. You want this business to last for the next generation after you and after that. So they have something where it helped you build like the foundation that you are, in addition to everything you've done with Camp Mariah, in addition to the legal outreach, in addition to like seeing the fights at that high school, right? Yeah. I just want to say full circle, like, yo, you did it. Well, you didn't do it. You are doing it, because I don't want to say did it because it's past tense, but you are consistently doing it. And like, what do you want to leave off of? Like, what kind of like little gem or like thing you want to just say to the people?
I would say, if there's like I guess I'll say two things. If you are a younger person, maybe like meaning under 25, and you're listening to this or watching this, I think the most important thing that I always wish I would have told my younger self is to believe in myself. Like, seriously, not in a cliche way, not in the like, you can do anything you want to do, but like that like first thought you have for the idea that you feel like it's going to change your life, put that shit on paper, do that thing. And even if that thing ends up evolving, still do that thing. Because when I think about what the Great movement was, which is that's what made me Naya Tha Great. It was the very first thing I've ever created on my own. What that was, it was the shade room before we had a shade room. And it was the idea at the time. I just was like, I can't really wrap my head around. It's something I really want to do. Like, we had the shade room and Baller Alert at the time, but they weren't like as big as they were now. And I was doing something a little different, but I just kind of like, couldn't focus on my own thing. I was paying attention to someone else's lane. That's the second thing I would say. Really try to focus in on your own things. You know what I mean? And like, it's like just you're running your own race. You're really not in competition with anybody. And I really felt like I was in competition with them at the time, and they had no clue who I was. You know what I'm saying? But I really didn't believe in myself and believe that I could pull this off. I built that website myself and still kind of was using it and didn't believe I did it, and kind of thought like I did something wrong, or kind of it was a joke because I did it myself. So really believing in yourself and trusting that you have everything you need to get where you need to be. And then if you're an older person, above 25,
you know, more vintage,
listening to this, I would just say, you know, it's just not too late to do anything that you want to do. And again, not in a cliche way, but like I've always wanted to learn how to draw. And that's something I'm going to start doing because I really always wanted to learn design. And that's where I am in my life. I think, like, in addition to the work that I do, one of my hobbies is gonna be me learning how to graphic design.
You have like the best person to teach you on your team.
Right. Kojo's not gonna teach me.
Well, not teach you, but he'll give guidance.
Literally, Kojo has no time for anybody. My famous
not
friend.
Even himself.
For real, that's my famous friend. But like, just it's never too late to lean into the things that make you feel like a kid and make you feel, good about yourself. Like just never, I guess all of this sounds really cliche, but like, never stop dreaming and all that stuff. But like in a serious, way, it's just like things really can turn around for you whenever you decide. It's all about your mindset and stuff like that. And I think, people are saying that to you your whole life, but the more, the older you get, you really start to realize it. And so I would just say like, you are really in control of all of this more than you realize. And you can do it. Whatever it is that you're trying to do, you can do it. Keep going and things.
I appreciate it. Hey, look, I want you to finish that thought. You had a lot of knowledge and passion coming out.
I just don't ever want it to feel really cliche, but I think the real point is just that like in this day and age, we're really in a black Renaissance moment. You know what I mean? And like Black people are accomplishing things that we didn't think were going to happen for another couple of decades or maybe another century. And I just always think about how when I was younger, I wish I was supported in certain ways because I would be in a different place. You know what I mean? I just would. But even more than people supporting me, I wish I could have just believed in myself enough to keep going forward.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I just could not believe in myself enough to keep doing the great movement. Or at the time we had a podcast too called Broken Bougie. I didn't believe in myself enough to keep those things going. And I could, we could be on very different ends of this table right now had I did.
Probably.
So and I feel like maybe I do regret it a little bit, but I feel like it was a learning experience. You know what I mean? Learning, like it's just like I didn't believe that I was ahead of the curve, and I was. And I want any little Black girl kind of struggling with that to believe it. Like even if you're the only one who believes it, believe that.
Man, we got end of it right there. So, where can they find you? Where can they find access to Dyckman Basketball on social media, websites? This is the time where you say, how do they find you on social media? How do they find Dyckman Basketball?
To the camera? Okay, so I'm Naya Tha Great, Nayatha Great on every single thing. Never gonna change that. And then Dyckman Basketball on every single thing as well. With the exception of Twitter, I think where I am Dyckman on Twitter.
Right.
And yeah, you can, feel free to DM me or DM me. Respectfully, please.
Yeah, you gotta add that because somebody's gonna be like, well, you said respectfully.
Right,
bro.
please respectfully because I'm not gonna answer it any other way.
She got the fam. She got the fam. She got the squad. She got her people. So.
And yeah, I really enjoyed this. I haven't talked about myself in a while, and I've just been putting stuff like that off. So I'm glad I was able to come and do it.
Well, I am glad that you trusted me enough to do it. Guys, we're gonna close off. This is Skip from BK, host of Dreams Money Can Buy. This is powered by Cove Output. That's my website. I haven't wrote an article in a while, but I'm gonna get to it. I need to get this season out first. But we're gonna get this over to Slept On Creative. Shout out to my bestest friend in the world, Jomo, and his lovely partner in crime. Well, they're equal, so we're gonna make sure man and woman creative things, and they make sure that the video and audio, whatever kind of like raw stuff, looks all clean and refined. It's gonna make her look good. We're gonna have like the little pictures and stuff for like the logo. We're gonna do all that stuff. We do that. And until next time, guys, stay safe, wear your fucking mask, and be well with your family and friends. Peace. Yo, what's good, everybody? This is post credits. So we just had in the building Naya. It was honestly a pretty cool interview, and this is we got to speak to someone that I don't really get to speak to all the time. I just got to observe her journey, so shout out to her and everything she does. So if you didn't catch her from like the end of the episode, but it's Naya Tha Great. That's how you can find our social media, Instagram and Twitter. So we'll have like that in this picture caption thing. Also, make sure you follow Dyckman Basketball. I believe it's Dyckman Basketball on Instagram, and I am Dyckman on Twitter. I believe they have the blue check, so check them out. I'm not sure if they have a Facebook page. We'll double check. Me and the team will double check with that. But we got you on that. And for me, I'm the host. It's Skip from BK, literally everywhere: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Tumblr, Carry Pigeon. It's the thing. It's the thing that we do. So you just keep up with me, what I'm doing in my own personal endeavors. Make sure you are following Cove Alpha. I'm super sporadic with the writing, but hopefully in 2022 and onward, we'll get more actual articles and other content. We're going to have more podcasts, more visuals. So we're going to be working together with our amazing team that we love to work with the best. Slept On Creatives. Shout out to Katiana and Jomo. Those two head creators over there that help with the audios and videos. Just make sure that they look clean and crisp and all that back end stuff that I'm not good at doing. I get the raw video and audios and just give it right to them. So they're amazing with that. So if you want to get their services and pay for it, just head over to those two at Slept On Creatives. I know Slept On Creatives on Instagram. I think Slept On, or I think it's a different acronym on Twitter. We're going to have that in the bio, the picture. So guys, have a great night and see you soon. Peace.